Hey, what's going on? This is BTBT, and we are back at it again with episode 46, coming at you from Gunhill Brewery in the Boogie Down Bronx. Co-owner Dave Lopez returns to the show to talk to us about the history and philosophy of Gunhill and drop some BTBT exclusives along the way. It's another good episode that you don't want to miss. Before we get to this week's show, don't forget to check out the BTBT store at beertodaybeertomorrow.com. We got custom logo glassware and shirts. The perfect pour for the perfect beer needs the perfect glass. Get your 16-ounce can-style logo glassware today. We also have BTBT custom logo shirts. If you want to be styling and profiling, grab your shirt right away. All proceeds go towards making this show, along with the content we bring you, bigger, better, and more robust. Visit the BTBT store at beertodaybeertomorrow.com and support the Craft Beer Odyssey today. Now, let's start the show. Cheers. Hey, what's going on? This is Beer Today, Beer Tomorrow. Very excited to be here at Gunhill Brewery, located at 3227 Laconia Avenue in the Bronx. I've had many Gunhill beers in the past, but this is my first official trip to the brewery, and I really dig what Gunhill is doing here. They've brought craft beer culture to a borough with not a lot of breweries, so big respect for that. Gunhill focuses on utilizing the best fresh local ingredients to create their handcrafted brews, and we're going to be drinking quite a few of them today. Gentlemen, how we feeling?
Doing all right. Doing well.
Same. Long trip here, but ready to go?
Yeah, absolutely. Ready to go. And we'd like to welcome Dave Lopez back to the show, joining us a few episodes back. He was on the last day of summer two-part show that we did. So Dave, welcome back to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for coming up here.
Absolutely. So back around 1810, New York State, they dominated the American brewing scene. It was home to the largest brewing industry in the country, over 400 individual breweries, one of the biggest hot-producing regions in all of America, and throughout most of the 19th century. So what does it mean for you personally to be able to grow the New York craft beer revolution, so to speak, and specifically here in the Bronx?
I mean, it means a lot to Kieran and I because we're both New Yorkers, born and bred. I grew up in the city. I lived there my whole life. So being able to, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to start this brewery, is just because at the time we were looking into this, there were really only 5 breweries in the city. And so we kind of looked at it as and this was 5 years ago, if San Diego has 84 breweries and New York City only has 5, well, there's something wrong with that.
Sure.
So, it meant it was like a no-brainer to us that we had to look into doing this. And then the Bronx was kind of a natural for us because Kieran was born in the Bronx. I went to school my whole life in the Bronx. My grandfather actually went to high school around the corner from the brewery.
Oh, wow.
So, and Kieran and I, we know each other from playing baseball together, and our team that we met on is based in the Bronx.
Very cool. So just taking it to a little bit of a historical fact. So January 25th, 1777, there was a Revolutionary War battle that took place not too far from here. So Gunhill Road used to be known as Kingsbridge Road by early settlers because it led to the Kingsbridge and the Kingsbridge settlement. And this was an important east-west thoroughfare for both sides, particularly for the Patriots because it was one of the only crossings to Manhattan at the time. So during this famous battle, the British were pushing the Patriots east towards the river. While in retreat, a group of brave and quick-thinking soldiers, led by Captain Bryant of the artillery, dragged a big-ass cannon atop of a nearby hill, fired on the charging Brits, pushed them back. And then the strategic position, which ended up becoming known as Gunhill, forced the Brits to retreat west and allowing the Patriots to escape. So tell us how and why that kind of influenced some of the things you do here at the brewery.
So I was actually a history major in college. And,
Same here.
And one of the things that I really wanted to do when we were coming up with the concept for the brewery was I really wanted this to be a New York-centric brewery. I wanted it to be something where when people heard the name, maybe they didn't, if they were from out of state, it'd be one thing, but specifically in New York, if you hear the name, you want to be like, oh, that's New York. And also because we have a farm brewing license, so that was partially one of the reasons why we wanted to do it that way. And so we had a whole list of names digging back into history that we had on our short list. Gunhill being one of them. And so when we actually got this particular space and we saw how close we actually were to Gunhill Road, we were kind of like, okay, that's a sign that has to be the winner. And so when you name something Gunhill, you're naturally going to start looking back at the Revolutionary War. And so that just sort of lent itself to all of our branding and our imagery. And what we try and do is we try and use as much of the revolutionary, not culture, but sort of the revolutionary names, some of the general, the genres that existed during there when we're talking about the names of our beers. We try and use patriotic symbols in any way that we can. And obviously the cannon that you mentioned being up on that hill is one of the main symbols that we use in our branding.
Very cool. Yeah, and I dig a lot of the artwork on the cans. It definitely, when I first saw the cans, it made me think like revolutionary George Washington. That was kind of like the vibe I got from them.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the fonts that we use, it actually was inspired by the fonts in Thomas Paine's Common Sense.
Okay.
So the main, like if you see Gunhill Brewing Company, our logo with the name listed there, that font is derived from that pamphlet.
Very cool. Very cool.
So you mentioned that you and Kieran, you guys are the co-founders. You guys met, you said, playing baseball. It was the Thunder Dogs, right? Back in 2004?
Yep.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you guys met and kind of how that relationship developed?
So I was just finishing, or had just finished my freshman year at college. And Kieran was one of the guys who started the team. And I was looking for a place to play in between my school years. And I had a summer internship, so I was looking for New York City leagues. And I was looking for an 18 and over league that had college players in it. And so I found this league called the Westchester Rockland Wood Bat League. And there was only one New York City team. So I sent them a message saying, hey, I'm looking to play. And I went to this tryout, and they said they wanted me to play. And then I met Kieran, and before I joined the team, and I'm not saying because I joined the team, but before I joined the team, they were not a very good team.
You turned the franchise around.
Well, I changed the culture.
Okay, Phil Jackson.
And for the better, not for worse.
Yeah.
Call it Phil Jackson from like the Bulls, Lakers, not Phil Jackson, Knicks.
Oh, yeah. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Take a pass on Phil Jackson next.
I try to forget that part.
Well, no, but like, it was a lot of guys that were a little bit older, so I was able to bring in like a bunch of guys that I played with in college, played against in college, against in high school, so I was able to sort of inject a little bit of youth in there. And so because I was from the area as well, I knew a lot of people that were playing in other schools that were living or from the city. So he very quickly sort of saw that we were going to start getting a little bit better, and he kind of was like, listen, I don't care. We were out one night, and he's like, I don't care what it is, but like, I'll make you sign a piece of paper right now saying you're not going to go play for another team next summer. Like, you got to stay with us. And so he and I just sort of, ever since then, just sort of became friendly. And then what we would do is every summer we'd always talk about, this was obviously a couple years later now, I'm working full time, and we would always talk during the summer about how much we disliked our jobs and how much we'd always wish we could start our own business. And the reality of it is that neither of us were really ever particularly creative enough to think about something that we could do or do better or some new concept. And then we had another teammate of ours who was a home brewer, and he actually brewed all the beer for his wedding. And at the wedding, I said to him, like, hey, this is really good. Have you ever thought about trying to sell this or do something full-time with this? Because I would love to help out and and get you people interested, maybe investors, anything like that. I said, if you ever decide you want to do it, give me a call, let me know. And about 2 years later, during a baseball season, he was no longer on the team, but it was during baseball season, he called, and he's like, I'm ready to do this full-time. So Kieran and I would start talking about it during the season and say, like, what do you think? Maybe we should look into this. And we started doing research, and it was like, wow, there's real potential here. And this is something that with our backgrounds, we think we could do a little differently than a lot of people, because we don't have the the brewing background per se, but like we have the business background.
Can you tell us about
Right.
your business background?
Sure. I actually still work in finance. So what I do equity derivatives, sales and trading. And Kieran's background was in consulting. So we kind of felt that from that angle, between the people we knew, the contacts we had, and just our professional experience, we would bring a different approach to the beer business for us. And then the original idea was to have this third guy that we knew be the brewer and handle everything. And we could never agree on how we were going to structure it. And so we agreed to go our separate ways. But Kieran and I were like, you know what? Let's go find someone who has real professional brewing experience. We'll bring him in. He'll handle all of the creative stuff, and we'll handle all of the business stuff, and it'll be different. And so we hired our first brewer that way, and he definitely brought a sense of legitimacy to us right out of the gates. And within 6 months of opening, we had won the gold medal for Void of Light at GABF.
That's right, yeah.
So there was definitely that aspect that we would not, or probably would not have had if we had gone with the original plan.
So taking a step back, I know you mentioned that you know the wedding did influence you, but was there a specific moment where you guys were like, you know what, yeah, you know, this is what we want to do. We want to open a brewery.
Well, I think, you know, like I said, we were always looking for a way to sort of become our own bosses, and you really, unless you can do something better or you can create something new, it's tough to start your own business. And so I think what we thought was, we started doing research because of this idea, this concept, and by doing the research, we realized that it was like, okay, there are all these breweries elsewhere that are not here in the largest city in the world, with the largest number of bars and restaurants just in the city. Like, why not? Like, what can we bring to the table that maybe other people don't have? And, you know, at the time, there were not that many breweries. Obviously, it's different now because you're seeing more and more people move into the brewery business that come from other career paths. But at the time, there were not as many people that were coming with that sort of background and starting their own brewery. So we felt that one of the things we were very confident of was that we could start this business, a very capital-intensive business. We could start it with less money than some people might think you need, and also run it very efficiently so that we could be making money and at a quicker pace, so that we weren't in fear of truly failing that at an early stage.
Did you feel like you had more of a runway because you were one of the earlier entries, essentially, into the city?
You know, I think when we were starting up, like when we were putting the business plan together and everything, we definitely felt that way. As we got we kept getting delayed opening up, which is a common theme here in New York. And I think
we talked to a lot of people that they got delayed.
Yeah, I mean, you almost like you're not allowed to open unless you've been delayed, because it's like part of joining the club is being delayed, whether it's like Con Edison or something like that. By the time we finally opened up, there were, you know, we were part of a brand new class of breweries that were coming in. So I think that sort of the runway that we thought we had wasn't quite as big as we thought. But like even an additional 4 or 5 breweries, again, like I said, like you can't compare what San Diego is able to do or what Vermont's able to do, and then look at what happened here. Obviously, there are different dynamics here in New York City that, you know, you learn more as you get into it. But like from a consumer standpoint, trying to look at starting this, you're like, I go to bars, I don't see New York beer in bars. Why is that the case? There's a lot of runway.
Yeah. I mean, the saturation point is still years away, realistically.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a different conversation, but I think that the thing that everyone says, well, aren't you worried about there being too many breweries in New York City? And my response is always, until we see full taps of New York beer at the majority of bars in the 5 boroughs, we're not at a saturation point. Obviously, there's a different dynamic being in New York because everyone from other states wants to send their beer to New York, and there's so many transplanted out-of-staters here that they can support their previously local brewery or their hometown brewery. But I think even in the last 2 years, we started to see, even within transplanted New Yorkers, such a big local movement that we still think there's so much more potential and room to move and get bigger.
Okay. Now, when you were hiring a head brewer, what were you looking for?
Well, we've gone through the process twice.
Okay.
So I think when we went through it the first time, we were really looking for someone who we felt would come in, make a really quality product, would be able to share our vision, and also give us instant credibility in the sense that people would take us seriously when we walked in. Because being that Kieran and I were not quote-unquote beer guys, if we were walking in and trying to sell our product to a bar, yeah, we had connections at a lot of bars where we knew people. But if we were walking in to name your super crafty bar,
yeah,
we needed to be able to say, here's our product, and we're confident that you're not going to take a sip of it and spit it out immediately. And so that was something that was important. So we were looking for a track record. We were looking for a solid brewing experience because we had none.
Okay. Well, so I asked because Peter likes to talk about philosophy a lot of times, and I think that's important. When looking into a beer, and how much does maybe your personal taste factor into the beers that you guys make?
So one of the things that we do, again, because we do not I can tell you about the beer making process. I'm not gonna sit here and start proposing recipes or anything like that. And so
yeah.
and so as a result,
make me a sour or something
that.
Yeah.
I think, what about having hop additions at this point, and that point. So what we've always done is allowed our brewers to have creative freedom to make the beers that they want to make.
Okay.
I think we had we allowed a little too much creative freedom at first, and there wasn't enough collaboration in the sense that it became a little bit too much what our brewer wanted to do and not as much what was good for the brand and the business.
Can you give an example or?
Well, this is, and I will say part of it is also we may have given off a vibe that we wanted to be maybe cost conscious in certain ways, but for the first 2 years we were in business, we only used one strain of yeast. So all of our beers had a general underlying taste that was somewhat similar, and we weren't making anything that was truly exciting to the market. Which, again, I'm not saying you have to follow the leader and do what everybody else is doing, but you need to do what sells, because if you can make the best beer in the world, they could be in styles that nobody wants to drink, and then the beer just sits in the cooler and there's no money coming in, and now all of a sudden you're like, guess what? There's nothing, we can't pay for ingredients, we can't do this. And we didn't have that problem, but it was kind of like we never had, it was like, yeah, Gunhill makes good beers, but they're very safe beers, and there's a place for them all, but like it's nothing that I need to have or I really want to have on tap.
So you were like local and crafts, but you weren't really making a name for yourselves. You weren't trailblazing in the local market.
No, I mean, look, like I said, we won a gold medal at GABF for Void of Light. Everyone knew that. Everyone wanted that beer. Any stout we made, everyone wanted.
Okay.
But the other beers that we were making, they were... We have customers that come in here and they used to joke and say that they were kind of like old man beers in a certain way because they were very, very approachable, very balanced, very, very well made, but they didn't have any sort of sexy factor to it. You know, for the majority. So, in 2 years, we made four different IPAs only. We made our flagship IPA. We made one double IPA, we made a black IPA, and then we made one quote-unquote cool IPA, and the response to that beer was so great that we were kind of like, we don't have to do this all the time, but like, how about more than once?
Yeah.
And it became a back and forth, and again, it was like, how about, like, this is what's sort of popular in the market right now. How about we try this? How about we try a Saison? How about we try a sour? And there was always pushback. And so I think our going back to your initial question, what do we look for when we're interviewing? When we were interviewing the second time around, we wanted someone that was going to be extremely collaborative. Someone that was in tune with what the market wanted, what the consumer wanted, because it's not about what he wants to drink. It's not about what we want to drink. It matters what you guys want to drink, because if you guys don't like it, you're not going to buy it, and then we can't make more of it. And so, you know, that was a big thing. Obviously, again, brewing knowledge was important, but it was also we wanted someone that had a real creativity. And you know, to put it in perspective, when we interviewed Chris, our brewer now, he brought us 3 different beers that could not have been on more opposite ends of the spectrum for us to try. And all 3 of them were beers that we did not have in our repertoire at the time. And so, like, what you see on draft here now, we really run. I mean, we're a little stout heavy right now, which is actually kind of ironic, but
not a problem at all. By the way,
it's the winter, right?
yeah, exactly. But like, you know, we have a wide range of beers on tap right now, and we have an even wider range coming out in the coming months. So we're doing different things, using different yeast strains, trying different techniques, and there's a lot more openness now as a team.
Okay. So I mean, I'm sure your schedule is completely just hectic and jam-packed, but on the occasions where you're not actually drinking your beer, I mean, what kind of brewers, especially locally, I mean, are there specific brewers that you like, and anybody that's impressing you right now?
I try and sample as many of the local brewers as possible. I mean, I'm the treasurer for the Brewers Guild, so you know, I go out and I know a lot of these. I know everyone. I'm going and visiting them. I try and visit everyone's brewery. In terms of like who stuff I've had recently that I really like. There's a new place down in Brooklyn, the Randolph. Yeah. They just opened up a brew pub there, and they did a beer with Barrier, this hoppy pilsner that was really, really good.
Shout out to Barrier.
What else have I had recently? I'm trying to think because I've actually, more so than usual, I've been drinking a lot of our beer just because we've been making so much new stuff.
Yeah. It's got to be exciting, right? I mean,
yeah, it's always cool to be able to. And then I was off for a couple weeks, so I had a lot of our stuff at home, so it was just there. What else have I had recently? I was just at Bridge and Tunnel on Tuesday night.
Bushwick, let's get it. That's my local brewery.
Bridge and Tunnelers.
Yeah. Shout out to Rich.
Yeah, Rich is a good dude. Shout out to
love
Rich. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he had a couple of. I actually had a pumpkin ale that he made, which is ironic because it's not. No one thinks pumpkin season now, but like now would be the time when people are making, when you actually get real pumpkins because this is right after the harvest.
Yeah. Was that the pumpkin sour?
No.
That he had?
No,
Okay.
no, no,
Wow.
no.
Okay. He had something different. Because
I think
I like his pumpkin sour.
I think it was a pumpkin harvest ale.
Okay.
And actually, you know what I had that was really good? He had a coffee cream ale. That was
I remember that one.
Oh yeah, the switchblade.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, it's good.
I had that. It was really, really good. And I'm not a coffee drinker, and I really, really like that beer.
It's like we go out of our way to mention him on every single podcast.
He just comes out. He's a good guy. Rich is a good guy.
Yeah.
His story about how he built the brewery is just crazy. But today's all about Gunhill, so you know
Yeah, we didn't
we'll
talk
leave
about
Rich
Gunhill.
for another time. But so I'm curious. So how do you feel that the whole getting into the canning game, how that impacted your business?
It's allowed us to get into a lot more places. I mean, I think right now we're distributed throughout the entire state of New York. We started distributing in the late summer to Massachusetts, and what we send to Massachusetts is only cans. We're starting this week. We're sending stuff to Rhode Island again, only cans, and we started this past November sending stuff to Connecticut, and cans are a big component of that. And so it allows us to get our beer in front of a lot more people. It's a lot easier to transport it. It's definitely. I love it because I can bring stuff home, which obviously makes a big deal. But
absolutely.
I think we don't have people lining up to get cans, partially because we're not trendy enough, I guess. We're not cool enough for that. But also our location plays a big part of that, just where we are.
Yeah, you guys are a bit hard to get to.
Yeah.
If you're not a Bronx native.
Or if you don't have a car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
that's
the Bronx
very true.
Bronx has like a weird transport. Even like if you're not directly off the train, no matter where you are in the Bronx, it's hard to get to. Yeah.
Well, so let me ask you, how hard is it to? Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that you still have a job in Manhattan, and you have this brewery here. How hard is it to manage both at the same time?
Well, I'm very fortunate that my partner Kieran is here full time, and that we have the same vision for the brewery, and that we think alike. So he handles a lot of the operational stuff and the day-to-day stuff that goes on here. He and I have an open line of communication. The nice thing about what I do for the brewery, which is, I oversee all the sales and distribution. I do all the marketing, the PR. I do all the, I guess you'd say the personal interfacing with the other breweries and all that. So a lot of what I do, I can do from the computer. I can do from the phone. I can do after hours. So that makes a big.
So you're not on your lunch breaks, like making phone calls.
I don't get a lunch break, so if I have to make a phone call or something, I might pretend like I have to walk around for a minute or two.
Wow, that's intense.
Become a fake smoker, basically.
Well, the thing is that the people that I work with, a lot of them are actually invested in the brewery, so they know.
So it's in their interest to let you take a second.
Yeah. You know what? I've learned. You learn when things are important and not important. And so if it's something that's really, really pressing, I'll just say, hey, can you cover me for a second? I got to take this. Or vice versa, I'll say to the person that's calling, let me call you back after 4 o'clock, or let me do this, or can I get you back in a little bit. So it's a little bit of time. It's a lot of time management. It's a lot of multitasking. If you ask my wife, she would say that, she'd say I'd like to watch certain TV shows at home, but it's more that I'm okay with her having them on because it allows me to sit at the computer and do what I need to do for the brewery so that they're on in the background.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah.
Any particular shows that are a favorite?
Her favorite?
Yeah.
You name anything on Bravo, and it's her favorite.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm just real quick about the canning, since they're pushing hard on that. We were talking last show about how crowlers are really, really hitting it hard at Strong Rope. And I mean, it doesn't look like you guys have it here. I don't know about you have a tap room as well, right?
Well, we had one. It was we closed it for a few months because we had to move because we had some issues that we don't need to get into. I don't want to say anything bad about anybody, but we're reopening in a new location in the next few weeks.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Is that a
BTBT
BTBT exclusive right there? Is that an exclusive?
Well, I think the opening date is more of an exclusive, but people know that we're reopening that spot. I think a lot of people didn't know we closed the original one, but
That was the Gunhill Tavern, right?
Gunhill Tavern, yeah. So Gunhill, it will be Gunhill Tavern still, and it's actually going to be in a more accessible spot of the Bronx, closer to Manhattan as well.
Oh wow. Okay.
And one of the things
Nice.
we will be doing is we will be actually doing some of our can releases there. Because it's a satellite, so we literally can do everything that we can. If we wanted to, we could brew beer there.
Right.
We will not be, but in terms of the crowler, we talked about it, especially for here. We will not do it there. The biggest reason is storage.
Right.
Right.
You know, the growlers are one thing, and you know we have a whole bunch of them up top there.
Yeah.
But as we're like, you can see, we have a ton of kegs that we just got in. We've already got one tank in the tasting room here. We've got 2 more tanks on the way that we're gonna have to find space for, either in the back or something. So we need to start getting creative in terms of storage space here, and having all the cans, needing another line of CO2 up there to sort of purge everything.
Yeah.
It's something that if we can make it work, we want to, because I know everyone's having a lot of success with it, and it's really popular. But you know, one of the other things that we're always concerned about, that Chris is concerned about, is that people think of crowler and then they assume it's like a can that they can sit on for a little while. And crowler is a step above the growler, but you still need to drink it relatively quickly, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, you don't have to take it there.
Right.
You just get to take it home.
Well,
You got to drink it in a sitting. You got to drink it relatively soon after you get it.
Yeah.
right. But not only that, like, you don't want to let it sit for 2 months, and then because then the worst thing that happens is that somebody comes, they have a good experience here, they take something home, they open it up, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, maybe I had a weird taste that day, and I thought I liked something that I didn't really, because this is awful.
Right.
And then they're like, I'm never drinking Gunhill again.
I wonder, like, would you put like a drink by date?
Maybe that. I mean, might,
just to like remind them, like, this is a can, but let's be real, you're getting a growler at the end of the day.
Yeah, that might be something to think about if and when we start doing it. But I think that the biggest thing for us is just storage.
The logistics of making it
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So shout out to Strong Rope. At our last show, while we were talking to them, their crowler machine actually broke in the middle of the show.
Okay.
It literally
Yeah.
broke in the middle of the
So
show.
this crazy, scary noise. It's like,
Yeah.
what's going on, man?
But so now getting back, you talking about opening the new location and canning. So what is your production volume like here?
So for 2017, we probably we finished right around like 3,500 barrels.
Okay.
You just said production volume all. You didn't say canning, right? You said production.
Production.
Yeah,
production.
3,500 barrels. We anticipate for 2018 that it'll probably be closer in the neighborhood of about 8,000 barrels.
Wow.
Because so much of the additional beer that we were sending out in the market didn't come online until the very end of the year. And we had a couple of things at the beginning of last year that prevented us from having everything really streamlined. So we've kind of hit our stride a little bit right now. No hiccups. Like, this is the first year that we haven't really had any, knock on wood, anything that has impeded us in some way. Like whether it was disagreement with the brewer, switching brewers, a brewer getting injured and not being at work for a certain period of time.
That happened?
It did happen. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like I said, we're in a good place now.
So you
where
guys kind of finally hitting the stride.
exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Very, very, very cool. So now, so how many beers do you have on tap here at the brewery?
So we have 14 draft lines. One of them is always a cider.
Okay.
That's not ours, obviously.
Yeah.
And then right now, just because we've had this keg and we want to do right by the other brewery of this keg, we have a guest tap on. But usually we try and keep 13 of our own beers on tap here.
Okay. And when you guys open the tavern, are you exclusively just gonna have your beers? Are you gonna have guest taps there as well?
So at the previous incarnation of the tavern, we had 20 draft lines and we had 10 Gunhill beers and 10 guest taps. And of the 10 guest taps, 2 were ciders.
Okay.
What we found was that the majority of people were only drinking Gunhill beer because they're coming to Gunhill Tavern.
To drink Gunhill.
To- Gunhill,
yeah.
right.
I mean, part of the reason why we wanted to open that place was because, as we mentioned earlier, we're relatively inaccessible here. And so even people in the Bronx, if you live in the South Bronx, there's no good way to get here by public transportation.
No.
So we had customers that were, we would call them loyal and regular, but they were regular once a month or regular whenever we'd have an event. When we opened the tavern, now we're in their backyard, and that once a month became once or twice a week. And so we're able to bring our beer now to people that want to experience it, but don't necessarily want to spend the whole day trekking up here or don't have the means to get up here because they don't want to pay for a cab to come up here because it's expensive. So what we're going to do this time around, also because the cooler space is going to be a little bit smaller, we're going to have only 8 lines at the tavern. We'll keep a cider, so it'll be 7 Gunhill beers, but then we're going to have cans down there, and we'll have Gunhill cans, but we'll also have cans and bottles for other New York City and New York State breweries to drink on premise.
Very cool.
Very
cool.
So instead of doing it with the draft line, we'll do it with bottles and cans, and it'll take up a little bit less space than the kegs would have, and
Right.
they don't have as much. We don't have as many lines running through the place that we did.
Now let me ask you, what is your relation? I mean, as far as I know, there's only 2 breweries in the Bronx.
Well, there is the Chelsea Brewery as well. Chelsea
Okay.
Brewing Company is located in the Bronx. I mean, I'm not really sure what their situation is right now. I know that they, I think one of their investors forced them to file for bankruptcy.
Oh my!
But they're still operational during that period. So there are 3 of us in the Bronx right now.
3 of you in the Bronx. So, do you have any relation? Do you have any
So
interaction?
Collaboration.
Are we gonna see a
collaboration
Bronx,
with Bronx Brewery?
right?
Not particularly.
It's a good answer.
I didn't expect this reaction.
Yeah, it's a good thing this is a podcast.
I'm cool with a bunch of the guys at the Bronx Brewery. I think that when we first opened up, there was a little bit of animosity towards us because we did open the brewery in the Bronx before they did, and I think they disagreed with some of the marketing that we used behind that by saying that we were the first production brewery in the Bronx.
Sure.
But you guys were. You were the first production micro
It
brewery
was,
in the
it
Bronx.
was a fact. I wasn't saying anything about anybody else, but I think we also have very different business models too, and
Sure.
and I know that there's they started making some different stuff down there now than they did, but their focus was always on pale ales. Ours had been different, and there really wasn't anything that naturally lent towards collaboration, I guess. But we've hosted events here where we we invite them to come up and have someone on site pouring their beer, selling their beer. So we try and represent the Bronx as best as we can, but in terms of a collaboration, there hasn't been one to date.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So now, do you guys have any new brews in development? Any upcoming canning releases you could talk about?
Yeah, I got a laundry list of them.
Let's hear it, man. Let's hear
so
it.
we actually when you guys right before you guys first got here, we were actually just tasting it, but we did a collaboration with a brewery down in Atlanta called Monday Night Brewing Company.
Okay.
So we did a grisette with them, and the base beer is going to be released next week.
Okay.
But the main bulk of the batch is actually going into, they're in the back, so you can't see them here, but they're going into, no, actually they're right here. They're going into these Sauvignon Blanc barrels.
Okay.
So they're going to be, so it's going to be aged in them for about 3 or 4 months. And so we're going to have that base beer come out in the next week. We're canning our Pilsner, our flagship Pilsner, on Monday. We've done that before, but it's been a little while, so that'll be coming out in cans again. The following week, we're canning a hoppy Belgian triple.
Really?
That we did with Thin Man up in Buffalo.
Okay.
And we're also
nice.
canning our milk stout called Velvet Royale.
Wow. And all that's up and coming, and that's going to be available at the brewery and then also through your distribution network.
Yeah, both of those beers, it'll be very limited distribution. The Pilsner will be wide distribution. The other two will be limited because they were smaller batch sizes. Just they're smaller batch sizes compared to what we normally can.
Right.
And then we have the next iteration of our roll call series will be coming out shortly. And then on January 20th, so I guess next weekend,
That's next Saturday, right?
Yeah, we're actually doing a chili cook-off here, and we're going to be releasing bottles of some vintage beers of last year's barrel-aged Void of Light, and then also a coconut and cacao nib Void of Light.
Wow.
That sounds really good.
It does sound great.
Both are from last year's batches, and then later towards Beer Week, we're going to be releasing this year's version of Barrel Aged Void of Light in bottles, and also a maple bacon version of the Void of Light.
Wow. Yeah, that was a laundry list. You guys got a lot of good stuff. Sounds like a lot of exciting things coming up. So, what's one of your? I know this might be a very hard question to answer, but what's one of your favorite beers you guys are doing right now?
My favorite beer that we're doing right now.
You have to twist your arm.
If you said I had to pick one beer to drink on tap right now, it actually just went off, but it was Roll Call 7.
Okay.
I before you guys came in, I did have the E Pluribus Lupulin Double IPA, so that's another rotating series that we do.
Yeah, I like that beer a lot.
Me too. Very nice beer. Very nice.
So I had that. But my favorite beer that's always available from us is our Divided Sky IPA, which you guys sampled. It's one of the. It was the actually not. It was the you had 2 IPAs in there, and it was the first IPA that you had.
Yeah, I think I drank that. Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
That's totally fine. When I first came here, that was the first beer that I gravitated towards as well.
Where did the inspiration come from for that name, by the way? I like the name a lot, Divided Sky. Was there any specific reason, behind the naming?
So it's funny because I asked that question. So when we name beers, a lot of times we'll give sort of guidelines to Chris, and then he comes up with it, and then we'll sort of maybe try and try and play off of that a little bit. That beer was all Chris. And his explanation for that was that during the Revolutionary War, the country was sort of divided and it's all under one sky.
Okay.
It's kind of a little bit of a stretch.
But he's tying it into the theme.
Sure,
I like that.
exactly.
I like that.
What we didn't know was that it's also the name of a Fish song.
Okay. All right. I did not know that
So
either.
the next
but
tour coming through, you got to make a lot of it, right?
Well, actually, they just came through 2 weeks ago, and we had the beer at Madison Square Garden when they when they were there.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, perfect. It was more to the point. It was perfect timing that we found out that was a
So,
Why?
so
Yeah.
actually, that's interesting because I remember last time you were on the show, you were mentioning you guys were going to get into the garden. So, are you guys now like? Can you readily get?
You can readily get Rise Up Rye,
Okay.
which is the beer that we did with the cast of the Broadway show Hamilton.
Right.
So you can get that there. That's in the New York craft beer stand on the main concourse. It's in some of the clubs, like the Delta Club, and I forget a handful of others. So that they have that on draft and in cans at the Garden.
So just briefly at a high level. So, how did that relationship come about with Hamilton? Which you guys were able to kind of do the beer for them? I mean, I think that's so cool. How did that kind of come to fruition?
There's a group of guys called the Happy Hour guys. I don't know if you're familiar with them. And they had this idea to put, similar to how Omegang does the Game of Thrones beers.
Yep.
They had this idea to put because they're both Happy Hour guys. Mark and Jimmy are Broadway actors, so they had the idea. They're like, why has no one put the brewing community and the Broadway community together? What if we paired up a New York City brewery with the Broadway show to brew a one-off beer for charity and see how that went? And at the time, we had been making a beer called, where is it up there? Might not be up there anymore. Well, we were making a beer called Skylar's American Wheat.
Okay.
And Skylar was the maiden name of Alexander Hamilton's wife. And also the name of the first senator from New York, her father.
And Walter White's wife.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Although I don't think that had any Revolutionary War significance. But
The man was anti-system. It was clear the connection, right?
It was in the Revolutionary War. Mrs. Schuyler, the Hamilton's wife's mother, so Hamilton's mother-in-law, she had a wheat field, and she burned her wheat field when the British were coming up state, rather than allow them to take over her crops. So we had a beer called Skylar's American Wheat. One of the Happy Hour guys saw that and was like, wouldn't it be really cool? Like Gunhill, it's a natural pairing with Hamilton. Wouldn't it be really cool if we could do that? So they called me and they said, this is what we're thinking about doing. Would you, if we get Hamilton on board, would you be interested? I was like, are you kidding me? Of course. Like, what's my downside here? Sure, why not?
Right.
And so it was right before Hamilton really became Hamilton. And so they were very open to doing anything that sort of helped them get their name out in a different way. And they also really liked the charity aspect of it, because they actually, a couple cast members on the show had started not a charity, but they started part of an organization that funneled into a charity, an orphanage called the Graham Wyndham.
Wow.
Did Lin-Manuel come through and spit bars?
Lin-Manuel did not come, but he didn't come to the brew day. He didn't come to any of the meetings before, and he didn't come to the party that we had. But his alternate, who took over the role, this is his last week performing, he was there for everything, and he was one of the main drivers behind the beer. And then at the actual release party that we had, the charity event, we had almost all of the cast there, which is really cool. Everyone's there drinking this beer. So it was really cool. And, we still have contacts there. I actually went to one of their birthday parties a couple weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
Nice. So it's definitely been a very good. We have a great relationship with the charity still. We still donate a portion of the proceeds to the charity. And now that it's the only. I guess it's not the only independent, but it's the only New York beer sold at the show.
Wow, what's up?
And now it's at Madison Square Garden. So
Now, one of the questions we like to ask everybody is, I like to ask everybody is, when was the last time you had a commercial beer such as a Coors, a Bud? I'll give you a Pabst. I'll throw a Pabst up in there. Milwaukee Beast.
Miller Genuine
Miller.
Drafts. He asked this question to everybody.
You know, I can't give you an exact date, but it wasn't that long ago. It was probably at a Jets game this year.
Woof. Okay.
You're gonna need
Shout out
beer
to
at
Robbie
those.
Anderson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually I like to try and do my drinking in the parking lot with my craft beers before the game.
There you go.
But this year I was having a hard time getting myself motivated to tailgate before the games. So I would go
You
in.
got a tailgate to get through them this
Well, they were competitive for most of their home games, actually, which is all that I really wanted. I wanted them to be competitive and lose so they'd get a good draft pick. But
Yeah.
typical, they were too competitive and they got a mediocre good draft pick.
Right.
Mediocre good draft pick.
Might be more of the same next season.
And they got some talent there.
Yeah,
I
he's a
think
Giants guy over here. We're Steelers.
Oh,
Steelers,
all right.
right?
These
here.
are Pittsburgh
Okay.
guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Pittsburgh guys.
All right.
Yeah.
In case our audience doesn't know that already, these are Pittsburgh guys.
We'll remind them. Don't worry.
I'm pulling for them to beat the Pats. So
I
Okay.
am too. I will say
Yeah,
that. I'm
I think
pulling-
most
pulling
of
that.
America is at
Yeah.
this stage.
We got to get through the Jags first. You know, those Jag-offs. Yeah.
But actually, you know what?
That's gonna be a tough game. That's gonna be a tough game.
It is.
I think if Antonio Brown's healthy, or at least 75%, I think they'll be all right. They'll be all right.
There we go.
Absolutely.
But you know what? The last I had a Bud Light a month ago at a Jets game because it was there and it was free.
Okay.
Those
Fair enough.
are
I mean,
good
free
reasons.
beer is always
Those-
the tastiest
yes.
beer, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, can you tell us really quick? So, what are the hours of operation here at the brewery?
So it's a weird. So we're Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We open at 2:30, and we stay open till 9 o'clock. Thursday and Friday we open at 1, and we stay open till 11 on Thursdays and 12 o'clock on Fridays. Saturday and Sunday we open at 12, and we're open 12 o'clock till 12 a.m. on Saturday and 10 p.m. on Sunday.
Okay. All right. And now, where can people go to find out more about Gunhill?
I always tell people following us on social media is usually a good start because we're pretty active on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. But our website, we have everything, gunhillbrewing.com. Those are probably the best venues to find it.
Okay. And before I have my final question, I'll just open up Perry, Justin. You guys have any last questions for Dave here?
No, I asked my final question. Well, actually, I asked this one time before, and I keep forgetting to ask it. Like, I'm a hip-hop guy. Hip-hop is about the beef. Like, you have anybody that you want to, say some ill words to right now? You gotta give that platform.
Nothing good can come from that.
Okay, no, not at all.
And he basically gets the same response from every single he tries. He's never got a response on that. But you know what? Props for trying, though.
Yeah, hey, you gotta try.
He's trying to stir some shit up in
Yeah,
this scene.
Yeah. Well, Justin, he used to do a hip hop podcast way back when. So it was a lot of beef going on there.
Yeah, there's a lot of trauma.
Yeah. So Perry, any final parting words, parting questions?
No, I didn't get to make it to the old rendition of the tavern, I guess. So it's good to know it's coming back because I'm planning to check it out because I do want to head up to the Bronx Brewery at some point. And I was going to make a day of it and see the rest of the Bronx beer scene, if you will.
But to be clear, you want to go to the best brewery in the Bronx, which is Gunhill, right? So my last thing, you've touched on it throughout, but my last thing is, for you to leave the audience with just kind of what that Gunhill philosophy is. You know, what the Gunhill, you know, what is Gunhill really all about that the audience should know?
I think what we try and do with our beers is we want to make stuff that is approachable. We want to make stuff that you want to drink and that you can drink more than one of. And even our higher ABV beers, we try and make it so that they don't knock you over, so that you want to come back and have another one. So that's the overarching theme. I think we want to also be adaptable, and we want to listen to what our consumers want and what they don't want, really.
Right. Okay. Very good. Very good. I can honestly say, I mean, I've had, like I said at the start of the show, had several of your beers in the past. I've always really enjoyed them. You know, canned beers is how I really first got exposed to you guys. And coming here for my first trip, I mean, I had a couple of beers I've had before. I've had several I've never had. I've enjoyed everything. You know, for me, everything was really good. The double IPA was great. The Desert Storm was
Dessert Storm.
I say it wrong every fucking time.
He's like you going to war, you drinking a beer.
Yeah, Perry corrected me on that before.
I was like, come on, that's like a double pun. How are you fucking that up?
I'm fucking it up every single time. But anyway, that beer is phenomenal. Really well done. Really enjoy it. And yeah, I'm glad BTBT. Thanks for hosting us. Thanks for coming back on the show. We really appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, all I can say is cheers to you, and we're looking forward to all the good things you guys are going to be doing in the future, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for listening to this week's show. Shout out to Dave Lopez and the whole Gunhill crew. If you guys find yourself in and around the Bronx, definitely check them out. Show them some love. They got some fine brews on tap. Are you following the Craft Beer Odyssey? It's the best way to stay up to date on all the dopeness that BTBT is dropping. Follow Beer Today, Beer Tomorrow on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or Podbean. Your support means a lot, and we really appreciate it. Now, until next time, no matter where you are in the world, drink local, drink fresh, repeat. Cheers.